French Senate's Defense Committee, socialist member of the upper chamber, and then Conway-Mouret joins us. Thanks for being with us here on France 24.
Thank you for your invitation.
We're waiting on the first televised address in prime time by Donald Trump since the start of the war with Iran, but he's been speaking all day, contradictory statements. What are you expecting?
Well, it will depend on the mood of the time when President Trump will express himself. I think we can expect that he will be very satisfied, having launched the war that he will present as having won, and therefore will be presenting the fact that, as he has announced, and that was, I think, the latest announcement, that he was going to be pulling out in a couple of weeks after he's just finished the last little jobs to be done. So I think, it's going to be an address for his own electorate, an address to the American people who are increasingly dissatisfied with this war, not happy to see the price of petrol going up. I think it's up to $4 at the moment a gallon, and also somehow renouncing, what his electorate voted for. That is, no wars, no inflation, an increase spending power, and all of that is not happening. It's just the opposite is happening with this war.
The U.S. president's been, at the same time, preparing with more troops headed towards the Gulf, and he's expected as well to express, quote, disgust with NATO. Is the U.S. pulling out of NATO?
Well, I mean, we know that President Trump is not a great fan of NATO, and in his first term of office, he had already queried the fact, that the United States maybe were, spending too much and not having enough in return. And now this time round, again from the start, he has continued to express discontent as to the fact that the Europeans were not spending enough, not doing enough, and maybe waiting for an excuse to actually, say, well, enough is enough now, But I think he will not pull out. I mean, as you rightly said earlier, that, he has contradictory statements. So we just have to live with the fact that he lives on threats. And given that he knows very well that we depend on the United States for our energy, for our security, he can keep threatening us to get the most out of us. And somehow it has worked, certainly with the Europeans. Donald Trump is strong with the weak and weak with the strong. So as long as we do not stand up, I think he will continue to bully us. And NATO, I think, is a very good. It's a very good way to put pressure on the Europeans who are today, are increasingly worried about a Russian threat.
So you talk about strong with the weak. On Tuesday, the U.S. president bashed France on Truth Social. The French presidency responding that, yes, it was preventing flyovers of military equipment for Israel since the start of the war. It took 4 hours. There was a gap before there was the official response from the presidency. Your thoughts on the French response to Donald Trump?
Well, every time you see, we have to measure how much we are going to lose and how much we're going to win out of what we do. And that's why there's never any rush into responding quickly. Also, maybe hoping sometimes that Donald Trump may have changed his mind in the meantime. As to what he says. So with that, I think, the French president wanted to make sure that, the line that we have had is well understood. May have taken some time to consult with other, leaders and European leaders and so on. So, I think we're always walking on eggs, we're just, I have to be very careful, and we've learned not to rush because, as I say, the following statement may be just the opposite of the previous one. So,
yeah, the criticism that's been made on that point is that far-right leaders, like the AfD's Alice Weidel in Germany, like France's Marine Le Pen, right now have more of a free rein when it comes to criticizing the U.S. president than the leaders that are in power.
Yeah, but it's easy. It's much easier when you're not in power to criticize because that's your role when you're in a position. And it's a bit strange, actually, that they do, being great admirers, all of them, of Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. So, it doesn't cost them much except maybe win some votes, on the domestic issue. That's all.
The British Prime Minister Keir Starmer is going to be convening 35 nations, allies, to discuss how to help secure the Strait of Hormuz later this week. Is that a step that you approve?
Yes, because, this war was launched without us being warned about it. And if we had, I presume that there would have been a lot of criticism as to the reasons to go and attack Iran. That's probably why we just realized it, when the war had actually been declared, had started. And now we have to clean up the mess. But the mess is actually affecting us, affecting our economies, and affecting somehow, a balance within the countries as to the fact that it's putting pressure on everybody. It's putting pressure on the local economies when we don't need it. Certainly in Europe, when we are making big efforts to support Ukraine and rearm ourselves, and where we need to also continue spending money to make sure that our public opinions, continue to be satisfied with us. So we just cannot pay a high price for decisions that others have made. I mean, as much as it is clear as to why Israel, which has been waiting for decades to hit Iran, found the opportunity to do so with Donald Trump and the Israeli Prime Minister, I think, visiting Washington on six occasions and putting pressure on Donald Trump to join Israel in weakening Iran. There's no other reason for this war, certainly not for the Americans. And that's why there were no clear objectives being set. And that's why I think, Donald Trump now kind of feels, well, I've done my job, of helping the Israelis, and now I want to pull out of it. But without looking at, what has been broken in the meantime. And it's up to us, the Europeans, because we didn't get involved, to try to see how we can reopen the Strait of Hormuz that is needed on the world level, at world level.
At the world level. And then Conway-Mouret, so many thanks for joining us here on France 24.
Thank you for the invitation. Thank you.
And what